All right, chapter 11. How many of you think she is descendant of Medusa? The new teacher hunched over her desk, her eyes red as if she'd been crying and framed by dark circles. She was plump and middle-aged with dried-out straw-colored hair. Dead plants adorned her classroom, and from beneath her long poppy-red cloak, a cricket chirped mournfully. It was the third week of school, September 22nd to be exact, and Ava's first day of health ed. Is she okay? Matthias whispered. No, Thea whispered back. She just lost her only daughter. And she still came in? Well, it happens every year. Matthias looked confused. Miss Demi? Ava whispered, short for the goddess Demeter. Every year on the fall equinox, her daughter, Persephone, must leave her and rejoin her husband, Hades, in the underworld. Miss Demi sniffs loudly. I'm sorry I couldn't be here for the beginning of the school year, but I find that it's just as useful to start my class after you've had a few weeks to settle in. Ava was bleh. Ava was still astounded by how quickly this had happened. It had taken just a few weeks to feel as if she'd been going to the Accademia del Forte her whole life. The days were a busy blur of classes and sports, the evenings filled with homework and scrumptious meals in the great hall with Layla, Arnold, and Fia. She no longer batted an eye when Layla's hair or eyes changed mid-conversation. She had learned to take it in stride when strange things happened, such as when Bjorn, a boy in Mr. Morose's math class, got frustrated with a quadratic equation and sent a mini hurricane through the classroom. He was simply a descendant of Typhon, the storm monster. Or in tennis, when she and Fia were assigned to play doubles against Hester, a second year who promptly sprouted a set of extra arms. She was related to the hundred-handed hecaton, hecatoncheires. I don't know. Design lab was Fia's favorite class, and admittedly the most exciting, because at least once a week there was a grisly accident that revealed someone's powers. But Ava, who didn't feel the same dangerous attraction to Mr. Hef's forge, preferred Miss Cleo's class, where she could indulge her passion for mythology while Miss Cleo showered her with praise. She wasn't sure what to expect from health ed. In fifth grade, back in America, the gym teacher had given separate cringy talks to the girls and boys about their changing bodies. But Ava had the feeling that health ed meant something different at the academia. By this time, Miss Demi continued, a few of you have already experienced your powers and figured out who your monster forebearer is. You may feel excited or frightened or a bit of both. This class will help teach you how to regulate your emotions so you can control your powers rather than have them control you. Ava noticed everyone shifting around in their seats, trying to identify these early developers. She knew only two, not counting herself, Bjorn and a girl named Lindy, who could pull back-to-back all-nighters, a power she'd inherited from Ladon, the hundred-headed serpent that had guarded the golden apples of the Hesperides and never slept. For those of you who have not yet developed powers, it's natural to have some anxiety about the changes to come. You may be worried about an embarrassing or painful metamorphosis over the years. I've heard a lot of fears concerning the sudden development of extra limbs and heads. Or you may start to wonder why you're not developing powers like the rest of your peers. This class is a safe place, a place to ask questions openly and share experiences without judgment. Via's hand shot up. But unlike Miss Cleo's icy reaction, a warm smile spread across Miss Demi's face. A question already? Ah, yes, go ahead. So why do some kids develop their powers later than others? Fia asked. Miss Demi walked around to the front of her desk and perched on the edge. There's no single answer to that. What's your name, dear? Fia. In some cases, Fia, it's just genetic. In other cases, there hasn't been the right emotional trigger. Stress plays a big factor. Ava thought about Owen and raised her hand. So if someone gets frightened or angry, they can trigger their powers? That's right. Miss Demi's dark eyes locked on to Ava's. It's why we teach emotional regulation. Exactly what Ava's mom had wanted her to learn. How did you get this job? Fia asked. The question sounded rude, but Miss Demi didn't seem angry. She just smiled sadly at Fia. I know more than just about anyone, mortal or immortal, about how to control my emotions. Miss Demi spent the remainder of the class handing out a questionnaire for each of them to complete, so she could separate them into developing similar groups, and asking them to keep a daily journal about their feelings. Ava expected Fia to crack a joke about the journal. Now we're supposed to be self-reflective monsters? But she didn't. After class ended, Fia went up to Miss Demi. Ava followed. Curious, what was she going to ask next? But she didn't have a question. I'm sorry about Persephone, Fia said. I never did think it was fair that Hades could take her against her will. Me either, Ava said. Every year, Miss Demi lost her daughter, and she couldn't even get angry at the gods. Just change the weather for mortals who had nothing to do with Persephone's kidnapping in the first place. Miss Demi patted Fia's arm. That's very nice of you to say, girls, but the world we live in isn't fair. Maybe someday that will change. Her gaze fell on Ava. I taught your mother. She was a feisty one, fearless. My mom? Melanie? Ava was certain Miss Demi was remembering someone else. But Miss Demi smiled at the mention of her mom's name. You look exactly like her. Ah, here comes Mr. O'Ryan. I'll see you girls Wednesday. Welcome back, Miss Demi, the headmaster bellowed, marching into the classroom. I see you've met Ava. According to Miss Cleo, she's on her way to becoming a top student, just like her mom. But I need to bring you up to speed on some of our other students. Ava noticed his gaze pass over Fia. She was certain Miss Cleo had complained about Fia's attitude, but according to Miss Demi, Ava's mom had also been feisty and fearless. That was weird. What Miss Demi said about your mom? About my mom? Ava said afterwards in the hallway to Fia. Feisty? Fearless? Are the last words I used to describe her. Plus, Mr. Orion made her sound like this perfect student, someone who's always followed the rules. Miss Demi made her sound totally different. Can't someone be a good student and a rebel? Fia asked. Ava grinned. You mean like you? Exactly, Fia said. But Ava couldn't help wondering if this was really possible, especially at the academia. End of chapter 11.